Hi, welcome back. Tonight we're doing standard form. We're going to review that slope-intercept form is how I solve for y. I get y by itself on one side of my equation, and y equals mx plus b, where m represents my slope and b is my y-intercept. And from that, I can end up drawing a graph, plotting it, plugging things in, but this is slope-intercept form. Tonight we're going to look at going over standard form. Standard form is where ax plus by equals c. And the way I write this, remember that x comes before y alphabetically, and I have three numbers, a, b, and c. And they have to be any number that is not equal to 0. So they are all numbers, but they're not, well, c can equal 0, but a cannot equal 0, and b cannot equal 0. But a, b, and c are all just any general number. So let's look at how I can end up graphing this and finding x and y intercepts. All right, so let's look at this problem over here. I want to find the x and y intercept of 3x plus 4y equals 8. Make sure you're doing this along with me. So notice that this is written in standard form. I have a is 3, b is 4, and c is 8. And I have my x and y. ax plus by equals c. So the first thing I want to do is find my x-intercept. Now my x-intercept, if I think back to my coordinate plane, is where my graph intersects with my with my x-axis. So my x-intercept here is this point right here. Notice that my x-intercept is some number like 3, 0, or 20, 0. It's when y is 0. So my x-intercept is when y equals 0. So let's plug that in to my equation. So when y equals 0, I want to plug that in for y, and let's solve. So I get 3x plus 4 times 0 equals 8. So what is my x value? 3x plus 0 equals 8. Okay, let's solve for x. 3x divided by 3 equals 8 divided by 3, or x equals 8/3. In this case, it means that my graph, my x-intercept, is x is 8/3. So I could write that as a coordinate as 8/3, comma, 0, because the x-intercept is when y is 0. All right, let's continue. Let's look at finding my y-intercept. So to find my y-intercept, if I'm thinking back to this graph over here, it's this place. It's where I have some number like 0.5 or 0.10. My y-intercept is when my x equals 0. So let's use that and plug that in for x. So just to remind you, my y-intercept is when my x is 0 and my line crosses the y-axis. So I want to plug 0 in for x. So I'm going to take my equation back from up here, and I'm going to plug 0 in for x, and then solve for y. And I get 0 plus 4y equals 8, and y equals 2. All right, so if I look at graphing this now, so now that I have my graph, I'm going to plot my y-intercept first. That one's a little bit easier. So I'm going to start at my origin. My x is 0, and I'm going to go up to 2. I'm plotting this point right here, which I found by plugging 0 in for x into my equation. So I plot my y-intercept at 0, 2. And next I'm going to plot my x-intercept at 8/3 and 0. In order to plot that, I need to simplify 8/3 a little bit, and I need to think of 8/3 as about 2 and 2/3. So that's going to be about here, right? 1, 2, and a little more than a half. and this is 8/3, 0. All right, now I'm going to end up taking a straight edge or a ruler or a piece of paper, and I'm going to draw a line to connect these points. And I get something that looks like this. Remember to put arrows on the end of your lines because these extend infinitely in either direction. And using this, I could say that where x is 5, my y is about -2. Where my x is -3, my y is about 5. So I can end up plotting graphs using standard form to find my x and y intercepts. All right, I'm going to give you an example that I'd like you to do on your own. Using the example above, please find the x and y intercepts of 4x minus 9y equals -12, and graph that line. If you need to write this problem down and rewatch the video, please do so. We'll check your work when we're done. All right, welcome back. Let's check your work. Hopefully you recognize that when I have my x-intercept, that looks like this, where my y value is 0 and my x is some positive or negative number. So I plug 0 in for y here, and I get 4x minus 0 equals -12, which is simply 4x equals -12. I'm going to then divide by 4 to get x by itself, and my x is -3. So that coordinate then is -3, 0. To find my y-intercept, well, it intersects the y-axis when my x is 0. So for my y-intercept, I'm going to plug 0 in for my x. It's kind of the opposite of what you'd expect. And solve for y. Well, 4 times 0 is simply 0. So I have 0 minus 9y equals -12. I need to divide by -9 to both sides. And a negative divided by a negative is a positive. So I'm going to get something like 12/9. I need to simplify that though. So 12/9 simplifies to, well, 1 and 1 1/3. So that's 0, positive 1 and 1/3. Okay, now let's look at how you graphed this. All right, hopefully you graphed this. That looks something like this. You recognize that your x-intercept over here is this point right here. This is my x-intercept. And I recognize my y-intercept is this place right here, where it intersects the y-axis. Label your axes. Make sure you have your graph with the arrows on either line. And well done. Let's do one more just for good measure. On your own, please solve this problem using your x and y intercepts, and then graph this on your own paper.